Welcome into Emerald and Lilywhite. This is episode 14. We are stoked to be back after a W. Feels like there hasn't been very many of those this year. In fact, there has not been, right? But we're happy to chat Spurs after a win. Not the prettiest of wins, and we're certainly going to talk a lot about that as well. But we'll jump right into it. With me, as always, is Max at Going Limbs. What's up, man?
Not much. Honestly, the last couple pods we've been doing, I think I was a lot more fired up because what was it? Like the Arsenal preview, the Arsenal review, the Newcastle review, like all of those, we were kind of like, we had some thoughts. And this game, it could have been like, this pod could have been a really entertaining one if we didn't manage to pull through, but we did. So it's kind of like you can't complain, but also that was like the worst game I've ever seen. So it's like, we rested our guys and got the win, and we haven't won a Carabao Cup match in 3 years.
We're back.
So we're just kind of here, and again, it's just like whatever. Okay, let's get into the game, but I don't have any strong emotion either way. It's just, we got the job done.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I'll tell you what, if we would have lost that match at Coventry, this would have been a fiery podcast. And things probably would have been said that would not have been, would not have aged well, we could say, potentially.
I genuinely, we might get into big picture stuff later, but this game, if it didn't go the way it did at the end there, I don't know how long Ange is lasting, honestly.
Yeah, I agree. I
mean, genuinely,
if we would have gotten knocked out of the cup, it would have been really bad.
Oh my God, it would have been really bad.
But we didn't, right? Spurs get the 2-1 win away at Coventry, mid-table championship side. They were well prepared to counterattack, no question about it. And if any football manager out there pays attention to football in general, you'll know that if you want to beat Spurs, come ready with a shrewd counterattacking plan, right? They did, and almost got the W. Again, big picture cheap shot there. We'll get to it, but they were ready to play, and they looked pretty good. Start with the lineup for Spurs. I think as you talked about, we rotated and rested some key players, which I think was crucial. As much as we want to see a strong lineup every week, it was really important that a couple of these guys who have been grinding, especially throughout the summer, international responsibilities, they needed rest. So what'd you make of that lineup when you saw it? Did anything stand out in particular?
Well, first and foremost, I was really disappointed to see Timo Werner starting.
Sure.
And yeah, that played out in the game. And he was horrible. And I've been saying it all summer. And I'm going to continue to say it. Mikey Moore is better than him. He should not be at the club. I guess we don't have much of a choice at this point with our winger situation, but that was pretty shocking. Secondly, Archie Gray at the right back position, don't get it. I mean, we saw how Spence played when he came on. Granted, he was playing left back. Wanted to see Gray in the 6th spot because it seems like that's why we brought him here to Tottenham, and would have liked to see him play there. Spence slot in there. But that is not what happened. We had Bentancur at the 6th, who ended up playing well. I'm not complaining about that. And then other than that, Solanke up top, I wanted to see Brendan Johnson start, but also Odegaard. So I guess if Werner was taking up one, it was one or the other. Odegaard obviously getting injured, super disappointing. So we did end up seeing quite a bit of Johnson. But I'd say my qualms with the lineup were Archie at right back and Timo starting. You just want to see either Johnson or Mikey Moore on the wing, and you want to see Archie developing in the middle alongside Lucas and Pop Sarr. And then, the center backs, we rotated both of them. I know you wanted to see Davies at left back potentially, but he did go with Uto. He just hooked him at halftime. I was fine with it. I thought Ben Davies was the better of the two, actually. So, Yeah,
Yeah.
good rotation there. Neither Mickey or Kuti Romero were in this squad at all. So
they both needed a rest big time. So yeah, I loved seeing Davies and Dragusin both at center back, even though I thought it may be wise to give Udogie a night off and have Ben Davies play a left back. I do think Archie Gray ties into that a little bit, and we'll talk about your two qualms with the lineup and Werner and Archie Gray at right back. I think Archie Gray played right back because Jed Spence was always going to play the second half. I think the plan was probably always to give Udogie a half right and then bring someone else on to give him some rest to tired legs, especially that position runs so much. So as I thought about it a little bit more, I said, I wonder if Jed Spence was always going to play the second half at left back, and therefore you play.
That seems like what it was.
Yeah. So
because Udogie wasn't at his best, but it's not like he was warranting like getting taken off.
Yeah, totally. I think it was all by design, and that's why Archie Gray played right back. I think in a perfect world, it's Archie Gray at the 6 with Sarr and Bergvall, because we've said numerous times that that's the midfield trio of the future. We would assume, right? Is Gray, Sarr, and Bergvall, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But ultimately, Gray does play right back. And then with Timo Werner, I'm halfway in agreement with you that we should have started Mikey Moore. I do think it was an opportunity.
Or Johnson. I mean, like Johnson, it seemed like he started, but he actually didn't, which is like, I don't know.
Well, and Johnson he's put in a fair shift so far throughout the first few games of the season. So in a way, I just wonder if it's a chance to see what Timo Werner can do and give him a shot to maybe earn some minutes. And he didn't do that, unfortunately. He lacked confidence in every touch that he took, in my opinion.
He lacked just everything. I don't even know.
It just was not a strong performance from him. So, but I understand where you're coming from and would not have had any issues with Mikey Moore getting the start. Let's talk about the performance then. We've talked about the rotation. We got the W. Performance was not good. We could say that, right? And you expect some of that with rotation. It doesn't help that performances have been stale and poor leading up to this match. I think if we had been on fire and then put in a little bit of an off shift in this match, we'd say, well, sure, we rotated. That happens, right? We got the win against Coventry. It's early days in the cup. That's exactly what you want, especially against the championship side. Again, weak squad, get through, start to beef up the lineup with each round. But because of performances have been rough all season prior to this match, I think it just kind of continues to compound. I don't know if we want to go bit by bit here, just open the performance up to a larger conversation, and I think probably the latter. But in my opinion, and I'll kick it off by just saying something quick here, we don't seem to have any idea of – well, actually, I was going to say we don't seem to have any idea of what we're doing. But in a sense, sometimes I think we have too much of an idea of what we're doing too, and it's becoming like really rigid, and this is what we do in this situation. And that's kind of the modern game, right? But there's less and less freedom and creativity to just play football, and we saw that a lot last year in the first 10 matches, but it's completely gone, in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely. I think about one instance, I think on Jed's first goal. Jed's dribbling up. He's inverted, right? He's dribbling up the left. Son is so wide. Jed is yelling at our captain, Sonny, run inside. Like what we've been saying on this podcast, you can see Jed be like this. Son is so far out wide that he can't even make the run at this point, or else he'd be offsides. So then we recycle it. We ended up getting the goal out of that just from a brilliant pass by Madison, Kulu, like just some individual brilliance, which is how we got both of our goals. We got bailed out. It's just Ange's system is broken, and I'm just honestly tired of people like blaming. I'm not like Ange out, obviously, but I'm tired of people blaming the players. At this point, we've come up, I think, in my opinion, the past 3 games, played poorly. Only started attacking, really going for it when we were losing. Other than that, it's sideways passing, it's boring footy, and it's you look at Ange, and we've had the better squad in every single game, and he is not getting it done. He's getting outmanaged. His in-game management is atrocious. His subs are horrible. It's just his personnel decisions have always been bad, in my opinion. They haven't been great, especially his subbing in game. He makes no tactical adjustments. It's been like this for years. The strong point of his tactics is his man management, and his tactics, his mentality, attacking, and that just seems to all be disappeared and gone right now. So that's just where we're at right now. And then actually I wanted to add two more things about the personnel. I think the Bentancur start, which pushed Archie Gray to right back, might be for an eye to the weekend, as like Bentz started against Arsenal and started that because Bissouma wasn't healthy. So you would assume that like he was just get Bentz in, Bissouma can start at the weekend, give him a break, whatever. We have more games coming up next week. And then another interesting thing is Romero, yes, give him a break, but also he's not playing next week because he is out from the red card against Milan. So you would be you would think that maybe we could get him in here for a little bit more stability because he's not playing next week during the week, but I guess not. So he'll get back-to-back 1 game weeks instead of playing 2.
Yeah, and I'm okay with Radu getting a start in both Coventry and Europa League next week. I think Dragoshin has earned opportunities whenever they're presented, and I don't know. So I'm okay with that, but I also hear exactly what you're saying for sure. Back to the tactics and the system and all of that. Nathan A. Clark from the Extra Inch had a little thread on this today, so I would point folks in the direction of Nathan A. Clark if you're interested in looking through this a little bit more. But ultimately what I think we're seeing, and I had really been looking for a good way to really break down and express what I was seeing, and he did it so well. But teams are set up to be able to take on these wingers 1v1. Their fullbacks are able to take on these wingers 1v1 because we're just simply not dynamic enough. And Odebear was getting us there, and he's capable of playing in one-on-one situations and doing really well. But he's really the only guy. We've talked about that, right? So you can take the wingers one-on-one with the fullbacks. You can ask your wingers to track back with the inverted fullbacks, and it really just leaves man to man in the midfield, right? Everybody's just marking and playing man defense, right? And it just completely shuts us down. So ultimately, the big picture here is our system is really set up when it's not going well to be in a one-on-one situation at all times, right? And it's hard to create overloads, and it's hard to create 1-2s, stuff that are so important when you're trying to break down a low block. It's almost like our system's not set up right now for us to be able to create those opportunities to break through a block. And we're coming up against another one in Brentford, and we'll get to that, right? But it just, like you said, the system is broken, and I think that's the biggest reason why is we just cannot create overloads.
And if we look at the goals that we scored in this game, it's exactly what we talked about against Arsenal. What we're missing there, it's like we've talked about this multiple times. We have the technical ability to play vertically through the middle, and that's exactly how we scored the first goal. Yep. Our center mids are technically really gifted. So is Dom Solanke. So are the wingbacks that are also in that area. Mm-hmm. Or I guess the fullbacks, the inverted fullbacks. And that's what we saw. We saw a link up of Spence making a run inside, not on the wing because he's inverted there. But we saw the buildup being vertical with the 2 center mids, and they're bouncing off each other, and they're getting into the box through the middle, not trying to get out wide and then cut it back in, which has not worked the entire season. And then the second goal, Obviously, great pass by Bentz, great interception. But who's making the run? It's Brennan. It's our wingers going diagonal to the middle of the goal, which is exactly what we want Son to do. That's a textbook Son goal is what Brennan scored there. We've seen Son do it a million times. We want Son making those runs throughout the game diagonally so he can go through on goal. Like, how many times have we seen someone through on goal? That's the first time this entire season, besides like maybe once against Everton. But even then, it wasn't like a real one-on-one like opportunity for Sonny there. And I'm just tired of getting Brennan out wide when you see like what we can do, or Sonny out wide when what we can do when we're making the diagonal run, and boom, it's a chance, because their outside back is expecting us to be so wide that we have the inside lane on the outside back in between their center back and outside back. And he hit the pass perfectly. But it's just like the two things that our system is not designed to do that we want Ange to adjust to are the two things that led to the goals today. And it's clear that his strategy of attacking is not the one that's working right now, because how many times have we seen a cutback cross work this season? I don't remember one.
Well, I think one of the challenges Ange faces is, we've talked about it before in previous posts. He was coaching teams, especially at Celtic, right, that were at the top of their league. Now you're in the Premier League, and not to be like, oh, Premier League bias and all of that, but there's so much money in England compared to other leagues. It's a very obvious thing to say, right? We all know it. And so 1 through like 15, 16 is a really strong squad. And so although these teams are set up to soak up pressure, counter, and break, or break and counter, they're still really talented, right? It's not a team that has to sit back and block and counter because they simply don't have the talent. It's because the league is so good that even though they're littered with talent, Brentford, for example, we're going to get to them, right? They're a very talented squad. And sometimes I just think of pound for pound, the system just doesn't work as effectively because of the situation, right? Maybe if he's at City, the system can work with the talent at his disposal, but there's not that gulf there to play such a crazy system at times. And I think that's maybe starting to show too. So that's big picture stuff. So, we can
it's like both subs, like when you think, like we subbed on Son for Solanke and kept Werner on while we were losing. Like what is that? And then you sub on your best player in the first half, Lucas Bergvall. You sub him off and keep Sarr on while you're chasing a goal. I don't get that. Like, I just don't understand it.
Yeah.
It's just I don't know how many games are going to go by where I see Timo Werner stay. Like, we signed Solanke for 70 mil. Like, keep him on with Sonny. We don't need Timo. Didn't offer anything the whole game. It's just like sometimes I just don't know what Ange is seeing. It feels like we're not watching the same game at times. And I'm not saying like I know more ball than Ange, but I feel like a lot of the fan base is in agreement. We can't all be wrong there. So
yeah. I mean, I don't disagree with what you're saying. I know I do think that the schedule factors into some of the decisions that were potentially made, right? We're going to need some of those guys coming up thick and fast, especially Solanke. We're going to really depend on him. If Solanke goes down injured at any point in time, again, we're
next year's back.
Yeah, he is, and that helps.
Back in training.
Yeah.
Maybe we see him next week, actually.
We're going to have to. I mean, we heard today or yesterday, one of the two, that Richarlison's going to be out long term. I think it came out that Ange said in a press conference that Richarlison's out for the foreseeable future, and really just to stop asking about it, right?
It's honestly sad. I was watching the highlights from our Brentford game last year just to refresh my memory on them, and Richie bagged in that game, and he looked really good. And I was like, when Richie was on, and I'm like, dude, when he's on, he was
9 goals in 9 matches.
I just miss it. I just miss him. I love him as a player. It's definitely biased because objectively we probably should sell him, but like I just love him, man.
Yeah. Credit to Richarlison. I think the only other thing from this match that I would say is just want to shout out Brennan Johnson. It's been a tough season for him, but he does step up in a massive moment. Great run, great finish, cool, calm, collected.
Great finish.
Say that again.
Great finish. Just
great, 100%. Just
if you
really
play
cool,
soccer, you know how hard that is to do, especially when you've been berated all week, no confidence. Like if he missed that, like I don't even know what would have gone on. So
it would have been bad.
That's a brilliant.
A lot of pressure on him. A lot of pressure on him, and he took the chance. You just said it right. He faced so much criticism over social media, shut down his accounts, the type of shit we don't like to see, and we've already talked about it. But he steps up with all that going on, bags the winner. I don't know if you saw this, but there was a video that came out, and he was pretty hesitant to go over and clap the fans.
That was bad.
It didn't, and I don't blame him, man. But like, Sonny kind of just gives him a shove and an arm around him, and then he just gives like 3 claps and turns his back and just walks straight away from the fans. So you can tell he didn't feel too kindly or warmly towards the fans. And not to say that everyone in the stands were those who were active on Twitter and Instagram.
Probably the opposite.
Yeah, complete opposite. But I think it's hard for Brennan right now, and that video was evident. But I'm super happy for him. I think he's a great footballer. And like you said, when just so happened to be a little bit more, I wouldn't internal, we could say, right? He was running in the inner channel there and wasn't just out wide on the touchline. So maybe one more jab at the system right there, right? But I was super happy for Brennan. Let's talk Brentford, though. Big one coming up. We need 3 points. If we don't get 3 points, this shit's just going to continue to compound, and we're going to continue to dig ourselves deeper into a hole that we don't want to be in. You said it already. Last time out, it was a 5-goal thriller. We won 3-2. Should be another exciting match. You can expect Tottenham to probably concede at some point, right? Wisa's out, their striker, which is, I think, important to know, and you had brought that to my attention prior to the show, so I appreciate that. What do you make of him? What's your take on what he offers?
I mean, he's just been really good for them this year. 3 goals and an assist, really fast player like him and Buemo. Dangerous on the counter. That's what their system is based off. And that's the Thomas Frank mid-block counterattacking style. And that's kind of what Frank has made his bones doing in Europe, and honestly has had some really good teams in the past couple of years who are super formidable. And honestly, he's a guy like Thomas Frank that I think could outcoach Ange again. And I think he's a savvy manager. And if Ange gets overzealous or stubborn and doesn't want to change what he's been doing when it's clearly not working, Thomas Frank is the type of guy that would exploit that. So I'm a bit nervous going up against him, but Wisa not being available for them is a big miss. Although, I don't know, they've still got a bunch of creators there that can definitely help them on the break. That's just lacking a finisher with him out.
Yeah, agree with everything. You mentioned Brian Bueno earlier. They've also got Fabio Carvalho on loan from Liverpool. Sepp Vandenberg.
Permanent.
Oh, it's permanent entry. Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's insane. My Liverpool homies were like flabbergasted. They were like, He had a great preseason. They just sold him. I was like, okay, wow. I think they have a sell-on clause of some sort, but yeah.
Makes sense. Yeah, I had no idea it was permanent. Yeah, he'll feature, I'm sure. They got Sepp Vandenberg, Mikel Damsberg, Christoph Ayer. They're a strong squad. They're very talented. Damsgaard one's that is going to probably earn a move to a bigger club sometime, I would think. I don't know actually how old he is, but he's really started to make a name for himself and has earned an opportunity in the Premier League. So I think he'll be a factor, but they're 2-2. This is interesting. Their wins are Palace and Southampton. Palace, I think, is a pretty formidable one. Southampton, maybe not as much. But their losses are Liverpool and City, right? So I think that can be expected. And I think that, weighs a little bit more heavily in their favor of being a pretty talented side, right? So I think their record could easily be 3-1, if they didn't have to play both City and Liverpool in this first 4 matches.
And they're in ninth, and we're in 13th.
Yep. Yeah, so we're looking up the table in this match, unfortunately.
6-pointer, I'd say.
Yeah. It's our competition for Conference League. It's going to be an interesting one. You already talked about it a little bit, but low block, they're not going to press. They're not going to look to possess the ball. They're going to look to be really shrewd on the counterattack. And they've got talent and speed everywhere. Basuma's back, so that's going to be a big factor, I would imagine. Like you said earlier, I think he starts, right?
I have him starting personally. Yeah.
I think
Ben's played 2 games in a row. Like, they were both not easy games, if we're being frank. So I think he deserves a rest. We'll probably maybe see him on in the Europa League, or maybe Archie Gray. I don't know. I honestly have no idea what Ange is going to do at this point. But I think Basuma will get the start. I think that's pretty bang on.
Yep. Yeah, I agree with you. Richarlison's out, as we talked about. For quite some time. Odegaard also goes down with his.
Yeah, can we talk about that for a bit?
Absolutely.
Because we kind of glossed over it at the start, but it seems like Odegaard is going to be out for like at least minimum a month. And when he went down in the game, I was like, this is not good for this specific game. But if he is out for a long period of time, this is really bad. And I just want to get your thoughts on that, because it's pretty bleak if Odegaard is not in the picture for a while.
He's the only winger that can do anything in this system right now, in my opinion. He's the only one, and maybe Mikey Moore, but Mikey Moore is 17 years old, and I think he's very talented. But for us to hinge the pressure of the Premier League season that's upon us right now on a 17-year-old is just risky business at best. It's going to be pretty nasty and grim and daunting without Odegaard. Unless something changes, I just see a lot of stale Son and stale Brennan and stale Timo Werner out on the wing, with a lot of recycling the ball around the top of the box and not being able to do much with it. Like you said, the only way we beat Coventry was brilliance from Madison and Kulusevski. And to think that we needed absolute beautiful football from our probably 2 most creative players on the team to get through a mid-table championship side, it just doesn't make me very confident. So all that comes back to Odegaard being out is going to continue to add to the challenge that Ange Postecoglou has tactically.
And I don't see how you can – it's got to be Mikey. Like, Mikey has to be the third guy. Like, there is no world in which Mikey Moore plays worse than Timo Werner did on Wednesday. There just isn't. Like, I've never seen – Mikey play anything but brilliant. Obviously not against this level of competition, but still it's clear he's training with the team. He's got to be the guy. And I just we can't be seeing, well, clearly now it's Son and Johnson. Those are our starting wingers. Like we said all summer, those are our starting wingers match day 1. And now that's who we're stuck with now because our transfer is hurt. So the next up, it's going to be Mikey Moore. And then in January, hopefully we can get rid of Timo Werner, get Odegaard back, get Yang in here, maybe sign another winger, and then we'll have a real team. But right now it's going to be Son and Johnson. That's who it is. It's not going to go very well, in my opinion, especially when we're just playing low blocks all the time. And then you got to see what Mikey has. Timo is not offering you anything. It's just a waste of space out there and minutes when you could be giving Mikey experience.
Well, and it's interesting. Like, I'm all for managers saying, I'm going to come at you. I'm going to stuff my style of play right at you, and we're going to beat you. Poch did it. Everybody knew what Poch was going to do, and he beat everybody doing it, right? So I can live with that. But in the current situation without Odegaard, what we're seeing on the pitch, I don't think it's unfair to ask, can something be different? Can we make some sort of change here? I look at our personnel, and again, I have managed U13 rec at my highest level, right? I've never managed in the Premier League. I will not try to be Ange Postecoglou here. But I, for example, look at our squad, and I think you could run, hypothetically, a 4-4-2 diamond very effectively with Basuma as a 6 and a Madison and a Sarr as dual 8s and Kulusevski as a true 10 behind Son and Solanke. Son plays so well off of a striker, and Solanke is so technical and can do so much from like a complete forward or complete striker perspective. If you want
like a 4-1-2-1-2.
Yeah, exactly. Something like exactly. Yeah. 4-1-2-1-2, the 4-4-2 diamond. So it's like I look at what we have at our disposal, and again, Sonny poaching with a Solanke who's really a complete forward can do a lot. And this is just me spitting something off the top here on a podcast, right? But my point is Ange Postecoglou is a really smart guy. And even if it's temporary until some of these guys get back, or mainly Odegaard, not only Odegaard coming back, but we can continue to invest in a better wing profile, right? Because we're going to have to. And maybe something just needs to give. And I expect a good manager like Ange to be able to look at what he has and, mix it all up and spit something out different that can be effective. So I'd love to see something like that.
Can we play a 3-5-2? I think we have perfect personnel to play that as well. Udogie and Porro are so good going forward. It's not going to be like Conte. It's not going to be like Conte. And we can play a 3-5-2, have Basuma or Bentancur sitting, Madison, Kulu, Son, Solanke, with the back three, Radu, Kuti. That's perfect. Like we are so versatile, and I feel like I'm beating a dead horse here because this is exactly what we highlighted on the last episode. Our players, we have such a versatile squad of players that can play all sorts of different positions and play styles that it just feels like we're the last team that should get like stale by playing one style when we are so flexible with so many different guys. Like even the bench, like Bergvall, he can play 8, he can play 10. Gray can play right back. We got all sorts of guys who can play all across the pitch. It doesn't make sense why we wouldn't try something new.
Well, and I think I love that idea. First of all, I think Radu in between Kuti and Van de Ven is a really nasty back three. I think even though Kuti is who I would probably put in the middle off the top of my head because just of his acumen and ability, I don't ever want to take away that right center back's ability to get involved in the buildup. I think that central center back really needs to just sit and hunker down, right? Where
I think that's good for Radu. Yeah,
I agree 100%. So you put Radu in between Kuti and Van de Ven, but ultimately both of these formations we're suggesting, and again, we're just podcasters and on the other side of the ocean, but they both are centered around, in my opinion, a 2-striker system because you can get Sonny and Solanke playing together. Sonny
and they're
is just
centered around not using wingers
that we don't have. We don't have the winger profile.
Exactly.
So when you don't have the winger profile, you say, look, I have one of the best poachers in the world, in my opinion, and Heung-min Son. I mean, the dude just buries the ball every time he gets it in the box. He's just Son is a pure poacher, man. I can't think of a better poacher profile in the world than Son. And you've got Solanke, who, again, we're learning a lot about, but his ability to drop back and get involved in the buildup, he's very technical, right? You could do a lot with them 100% an aerial threat as well. So either way, man, I would love to see
there. Like we saw it with Conte a bit. Not to go back to the Conte days, but you see, like I think about that Marseille game, like Perisic, boom, Richarlison twice. Like think about Porro whipping that in. Solanke's there. If not, he can check down. We can build up Sons through. It's just there's so many different options. And I think what we're both getting at is we have the same group of guys on the pitch, and we want our best players all on the field at the same time. And I feel like we look at Brennan Johnson and we're like, why do we need this guy on the pitch right now when we can have like 2 strikers and more midfielders because our midfield is so good, or we can have another good center back to help defend, and our wing backs are so good going forward. So we kind of don't need Brennan, and he could come off the bench if we need a spark there, which is what he does best. So it's just like we got to adapt, especially with Odegaard out. But I just don't, if we're being honest, I think you share this thought too. I don't think Ange is going to.
Yeah, I don't think he will. I want to point out to the listener, I'm saying that he won't and not that he can't. I think Ange is a very capable coach who can make tactical adjustments. I think there's maybe this idea, and I've even had this thought, right? Like, has Ange just pounded lower level opposition with this oppressive offensive system for years and years, and it's just kind of worked, right? And now he's at a point where it doesn't. I don't think that's the case. I think personnel is a big piece of it, right? And we can get there. But I want to say a couple of things here. Again, I think Ange Postecoglou is very capable of making smart adjustments. I just don't think he will, right? And I do also believe that we will get there under Ange, but I think it's okay to use Band-Aids along the way. And as much as I'm not a fan of doing those types of things, right? Like, I want it fixed at the root and the foundation, no Band-Aids, but sometimes you just don't have the personnel, and we need points. I think in the first season, it was probably process over points at times later in the season, right? Where it just wasn't working, but Ange said, fuck it, I'm drilling this system into this squad. I'm going to hope for the best, but I think we're just past the point of being able to say process over points. We need to stop the bleeding in the Premier League.
Especially right? In a game like Coventry. It's just like, dude, like we are so much more athletic and faster and better than Coventry. It's like we don't need 80% of the ball to beat them. We just need to go forward, like direct, like exactly. We're just better.
Exactly.
And it's like these are the games we have to win. And this weekend's a game we have to win, and next Thursday's a game we have to win, and next weekend's a game we have to win, because that's the situation we put ourselves in at this point. And the last thing I will say about tactics, and then I think we're going to jump into like what we think our lineups, what we think should be the lineups for tomorrow. The one thing that we haven't done this year that we did so well last year is we have been winning the ball in the final third, but it's winning the ball and going forward and attacking with it. Our press is good. It's good enough to win the ball. It's good enough we can beat these worst teams with our press. When we win the ball high, recently we've just been shuffling our feet around and then dropping. Like, we got to go. Win the ball. Go, like what Bentancur did. Win the ball. Go forward. That's how we're going to score a lot of goals if we figure that out. And we did that so well last year. I think we can do it again. I think that's one part of Ange's system, the press, that is timeless. No matter what happens, if we continue pressing and pressing well, that's going to put us in opportunities to get goals. And I think that's going to be a key this weekend and throughout the rest of the season is, can we convert the chances when we press high?
Yeah, sometimes I think maybe what we were seeing at times too is the squad being so focused on continuing to bed into the system that we were losing the transition piece a little bit. Like, no matter how structured and possessive you want to be, you have to be able to transition quickly and know when the opportunity is there to counter and break, right? And it almost seems like sometimes our players were just not fluid enough in those moments to break and transition well, right? Because there was presumably all this focus right now on continuing to bed the system in and get it where we want it to be. So yeah, a great example of that. And it's interesting that when the squad was in a position where they were like, oh fuck, like our backs are absolutely against the wall and we're 10 minutes from being knocked out of the cup, we have no choice but to just transition and break. Like you already said, so
and every time we go down, that's the best we play. And it's because we are being more direct. And it's not like we're losing our identity either. We're just being more vertical with it and more like intent on the ball.
Yep.
So
yeah. Well said. But yeah, let's talk presumed lineups then. Vicario is obviously in net. What's your back four? pretty easy question, right?
I got the same 4. I don't know. I could see Udogie taking a rest for Jed Spence, though. I wouldn't be shocked.
Interesting.
If because Spence isn't playing in Europa, which is another decision. And what are we doing, bro?
Yeah.
Like, we saw how Forrester played. He was the worst player besides Timo Werner.
Yeah.
Spence, my man of the match. I'm gonna come out and say it right now. And I'd be cool with Spence taking some minutes because we know Udogie is probably going to play at the midweek. He's been playing a lot. He's also kind of a looser, like his hamstrings. Sometimes those could act up, you know Destiny. And then, so I'd be cool with it. Like I think for a half, especially maybe we could do what we did against Coventry, but I got the same back 4, but wouldn't be shocked if Spence made his start there. You?
Yeah, good shout. I'm right there with you. I think it's easy to pick the standard back 4. It's a very talented group, but because Udogie will have to play next week, unless he puts Archie Gray out there or Ben Davies, which I don't see happening. Right?
I'd be cool with Gray. I'd be really cool with Gray playing.
Next
or
week,
Gray or Spence. I would be super happy with playing this weekend, or in Europa if it's Archie.
Yeah, makes sense. I agree. And then in the midfield, I think we both already said Basuma probably gets the nod at the 6. Do we see a Kulusevski-Madison combo again? What do you think?
That's what I got. I think that is those two together is like the one thing that's keeping us afloat, if we're even afloat right now. But those two, that's the one positive from this season, is that those two have been playing really well together.
Yeah, well said. I completely agree. I got Kulusevski-Madison. Those dual attacking mids. Up top, safe to say Solanke is going to get the nod in the middle. I think that's a huge part of why he came off against Coventry. Sonny on the left, you have to assume, right?
Yep.
And let's talk right wing, man. I want to give you a chance. You think it's Johnson? Yeah.
It's Johnson. Yeah. As much as I would love to see Mikey Moore grab a start.
That's what I was fishing for.
I think the Europa League, I'm not going to say this is such a big game for us in the Prem. Like, it's genuinely a must win. Like, it's not a must not lose. It's not, we'll take a point. Like, we have to win this game. Mm-hmm. We just can't take the risk of playing Mikey Moore there. We can do that against Karabag at home with a decently strong squad around him, which I think we will put out. Like, I have Mikey starting next week, and I think that's what he'll get. I do think he features in this game. Get him a taste, get him half an hour under his belt, start him in the Europa, and that'll kick off his season with the first team.
Yeah, well said. Let's go. I love it. So there's your lineup predictions. What do you think happens?
Before we predict, so you look at the bench, and so you've got goalkeeper, and then I think we would both agree that we're having at least 3 defenders, likely Davies, Radu, and Spence, right?
Yeah.
So then we need 2 attackers minimum on the bench. We honestly don't have that unless you – like, Will Lancashire played today, so he's not going to be in the squad. He played today in the U21's loss. Richie's hurt. Odebear's hurt. So you have to put Mikey Moore and Werner on the bench. So that's already 5 spots right there.
Yep.
So that leaves 3 spots in the middle for 4 players. Assuming Basuma's starting, you got Bergvall, Gray, Bentancur, and Sarr. So one of those guys, in my opinion, has to be left out, and it's got to be Sarr for me. I don't know if you would disagree with there, but Bergvall, he's too dynamic. If we're chasing the game, bring him on. Bent's safety net, Basuma injury prone, whatever happens there. I just like he's too good not to be on the bench. And then Archie Gray, I'd say that his versatility just puts him in the squad automatically because he can go on at left back or right back if needed. And I just feel like Sarr is the odd man out, and these injuries have really cost him because we can't really afford to carry 4 midfielders on the bench right now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with what you're saying, but I'd put my money on Gray missing out before I would on Sar, and I think that's just because Ange really favors Pop Sar, and I believe in Pop Sar. I think and I know you do too, right? But I think he's hit a bit of a rough patch, but sometimes the only way through that rough patch is right through it, right? So I think he'd be on the bench, and I say that also considering that if you have Spence and Davies both on the bench, you've got fullback cover in multiple ways there.
That's true.
So I think, unfortunately, it would be Gray, who I put my money on to miss there, as much as I wouldn't hate seeing it be Sar. But, and again, that's not to say I don't love and believe in Pop Sar, because I do.
Yeah. No, yeah. It'll be interesting to see because we've had the injury, like Bentz was injured, and then right as he got back, Basuma got injured. So we really haven't seen them both in the same match day squad, which leads to this problem of having so many midfielders. And then when you put Kulu in that group and he's starting, taking up a midfield spot, it's like now we have 4 midfielders and only 2 of our midfielders like coming into this season are actually in the team right now. If Kulu was considered like more of an attacker last year. So now we're looking at like, this is going to be consistent. We're going to see like who's going to miss out. This is going to be a weekly thing as long as Basuma and Bentz are both healthy. Cause I think both of them, they got to be in the squad every time. Bergvall has to be in the squad every time. Madison, Kulu, all those guys do. So then it comes down to like, I don't know, the youngsters, like which one of those dudes is not going to make the trip. So, I'm excited to see what Ange does because on form, Sar has been the worst. I think Gray has been better than him, but like you said,
I agree with that.
Sar, Ange loves Pop Sar. So,
yeah, great conversation. I'll be very curious to see what happens. I would hate for it to be one of Moore or Werner, which
I mean, we can't draw we can't not have 2 attackers on the bench. Like that's insane.
I completely agree. Sometimes I just wonder if Ange will do some crazy shit. So we'll see.
Who knows?
But obviously a lot to be seen, right? Including score lines. What do you think happens?
If I'm being 100% honest, I think we draw 1-1. And I'm gonna go with, I'm gonna go with James Madison to get his first of the season. It's been coming.
Right on. I'm just gonna go with my head. I hate doing it, but I'm gonna predict a 2-1 loss. I almost want to say 3-1, but I'll go with a 2-1 loss. I'm not sure if I know who I even think scores our goal. Brendan Johnson, maybe for me. And I think they beat us twice in transition pretty handily. I think we get exposed a few times, and I would predict that it's Van de Ven and Vicario that saves it from being 3 or 4-1, if I'm completely honest. So, 2-1 Brentford, unfortunately.
Do you think there's any chance we see, like, Udogie's played a lot. He might be playing because Spence isn't in Europa. He might be playing again on Wednesday. Do you think there's any chance that we see Van de Ven at left back?
It's an interesting question. I had never thought about that, but we saw that be quite effective.
Because, if you want someone against counterattacks, obviously our fullbacks oftentimes are at fault, or I wouldn't say, or they're at fault just because of the system we play. They get so high up and then we're caught out, and it looks worse for our center backs. But then we have Van de Ven to catch up. What if we had Van de Ven as a fullback so he can run back, and then we have 3 dudes defending instead of 2? I don't know if that's something Ange would consider. Maybe we see it this season. I don't know if I even want that, but I was just throwing that idea out there as well.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about it. I mean, I think we do have some decent depth when you consider Gray and Ben Davies and Jed Spence, right, when it comes to the left back position. I think when Van de Ven played last year, it was out of complete necessity a couple of times, right? Also gave Radio a chance to play, but yeah, I mean, you never know. I think that tactically it would make sense. So, but I
think so too.
Yeah, I'm also kind of a believer though that you never take a player out of his best position if you don't absolutely have to. And then I consider the fact that Van de Ven's probably the single best player at his position on our team, right? Either him or Cootie. And it's a 1A, 1B, right? So I don't know. I'd probably keep him at center back.
Yeah. I think I would too, but it's just another thing like we've talked about, like Pep, Arteta, these teams they're playing with 4 center backs across the back line. And
yeah, for sure. 100%.
It's something to think about. I don't think it will happen, but I don't know, that left back position, it's just going to be one to watch throughout the year. Same with right back, because those dudes, they run a lot in the games and they're super crucial to our team. So we just got to see how it's going to be rotated, which is why the Spence thing to in Europa is just insane.
Asinine. Yeah, I mean, I think that the 2 biggest positions that I would say are up for grabs if somebody really wanted to just bust ass in training and win some opportunities, left back's one of them. And it's certainly both wing positions, but I would say it's the 8, it's the wings, and it's the left back position that are just open for anyone who wants to prove that they're worthy of minutes, right? So yeah, it'd be interesting to watch that one for sure.
Yeah, and similarly, when I was watching the highlights from last year, like Udogie, he made a bad mistake in the game, but also going forward, he was so good in those clips, and it just hasn't seemed like this year. It just hasn't seemed like the same guy going forward. I don't know what it is, but we're just waiting for. It feels like we're continuously waiting for people to like regain their top form, and it's just kind of frustrating.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we'll see. Big one coming up Saturday morning. Again, if you're able, get down to either Cascades and Finney Ridge, or Cascades and Puyallup, or the Wits End up in Finney Ridge. Our homes on the north and south side of the Sound, respectively. Also want to bring to you our Loan Watch and our Academy Watch. First, the Loan Watch brought to you by the Wits End up at Finney Ridge. What's going on with those loanees, Max?
Not much. Alfie Devine made his debut playing 45 for Waterloo with Luka Vucevic as well. So those are 2 Spurs loanees there. He makes his debut in the top division of Belgian footy. Ashley Phillips gets hooked early from his Carabao Cup match for Stoke with a knee injury. Don't worry, it's not that serious. He should be only out for a couple weeks. I think it's a sprain. So that's good because he did go off in the first half. So that was a little bit concerning at the start. So that's all I got for the loans. Hasn't been too much action recently, international break and everything. So, yeah.
Right on, yeah. And then last but not least, brought to you by Cascades down in Puyallup, the Academy Watch. Played yesterday, as we've mentioned a couple times already, but what's going on down there?
Yeah, they got thrashed 4-1 by Southampton, the U21s did. Not great. 2 good things that happened. Alfie Dorrington and Will Lancashire both returned to the squad, so that's exciting. Those are 2 dudes that could potentially break into the first team. Will Lancashire, wouldn't be surprised if we see him at least on the bench for Europa League next week, maybe even in the first 11, depending on Solanke, how much they want to run him in these past couple weeks. So those 2 are back. We lose Callum Olasise. Gets the goal for us. He has been in the England team consistently for the past couple of years. Really good talent. I think only 18 years old. So yeah, it's not last season for the academy, and how can it be when nearly all of our players from that starting 11 are playing first team footy right now? So it's to be expected.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, when you have the academy team we had last year, you want nothing more than to see an entire new 11 the next season, right? That's the ultimate goal. So yeah, it's gonna be tough goes, but at that level, fortunately, it's more about developing than wins and losses, right? So that's always a benefit too. Feels dangerous to Spurs to say that there's ever a team where it's wins and losses aren't as important, right? Because they're desperate in the first team right now. But yeah, down with the academy, just nice to see us continuing to develop talent and hopefully get to a point where we're just really recycling. It'd be fantastic.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's going to do it for us over here at Emerald and Lilywhite. This has been episode 14. We appreciate everybody who has dropped in. Continue to share the podcast or the YouTube channel, rather. We are the official YouTube channel of Seattle Spurs. Find us on social media. We are at and Lilywhite on Twitter, @and Lilywhite on Instagram. Most importantly, we are, again, the official YouTube channel of Seattle Spurs. So make sure you follow at Seattle Spurs on both Instagram and Twitter, and Seattle Spurs on Facebook. We certainly appreciate it. And most importantly, please like and subscribe to the channel here at Emerald and Lilywhite. We really appreciate it. Not only does it help us continue to grow our YouTube channel, but most importantly, and we mean that, it helps continue to grow Seattle Spurs and lets everybody out there in the great state of Washington know, and even beyond, right, that there's a wonderful home here in Seattle for all Spurs fans to come together and watch the club that we love, even if the results aren't always what we want. Nothing better than being a part of this group and going through the ups and the downs together. So, yeah, please do what you can to help us grow the Spurs platform in Seattle. And as always, come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.